Fact. When you take Advil, you get relief right at the site of pain, wherever it is. Advil stops pain right where it starts. Relief doesn't get any better than this. Advil.
Has everybody had a chance to go over it?
I'm just
maybe a better question would be, has anybody not had a chance to go over it? Okay, well, let's start at the beginning of it, and we'll just whiz by. The first paragraph, nothing much to say there. I think by emphasize, hopefully you agree. If you're not, please say so, as per my expectations of you, to be honest. If you don't agree, it's important you say so. But I think we're all on the same page when it comes to believing that the quality of our members is way more important than the quantity. So we'd much rather have 20 dedicated, responsible, reliable people than 40 with only 20 dedicated or responsible people. I think we can all agree on that. Anyone who doesn't agree?
No, I agree. I want people to command, not names on paper.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't do any good. And I think that's why I emphasize in that paragraph about how much work goes into it. We just don't have time to deal with people that, quite frankly, don't deserve our attention. And that's really the bottom line. Status requirements, active. So, to be considered active, a member is expected to participate in 2 official training sessions and 2 official operations per month. Now, I've emphasized the word official because what we have been having before is people get around this by simply showing up for some ad hoc, and then someone goes, oh yeah, he's been there twice a month or whatever. No. It must be official training sessions and official operations. If a member fails to meet that requirement, then they will be put on reserve status with no notice, okay? With no notice other than they've been put on reserve status. And then he or she will be required, if they want to say, well, hold on a minute, there's a misunderstanding, blah, blah, blah. That's fine, as we have been doing now. But for the most part, we're not going to mess around with goofy excuses and whatnot. If you can't meet that expectation, and I don't think the expectation is huge, once again, if you disagree, say so. But that's the active. Anything on that?
Now, when we move back into an operational tempo and we have small-scale operations throughout the week, how will those factor into this system? Because those will be official operations that will have an impact on the overall campaign progression, but they won't be. They'll be section size or bigger.
I would say that doesn't count as official.
Okay, so
they're movers, but they're not official Sunday operations.
Okay, so we could add a word in here. Must participate in at least 2 official training sessions and 2 official Sunday operations per month?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, the Sunday operations. Because the weekly stuff, if that's maybe a section or 2 sections, it's not really an official thing because it's not everybody in the unit.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an official thing, DiPietro. You're mistaking official for large scale. Those 2 words are completely separated. These will be official operations, and they will have an impact on the overall game.
No, I know that. I'm just saying they're not official.
They're not
large
unofficial.
scale.
Yeah, they're not large scale. I'll give you that, but they're definitely official.
So what we can, okay, so let me just think about this for a minute. At least 2 official. I'm going to put must participate in at least 2 official training sessions and official training sessions. How do we do this? 2 official training sessions and or weekly operations.
2 official training sessions and 2 company level operations a month. Because the weekly ones won't be company level, probably.
Okay, so I'll just keep it at. I'll just add in there the word Sunday. Then that solves that problem.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Because the ones at the week are completely voluntary, despite
Okay,
their officialness.
Right. Okay, I understand. Okay, those are voluntary. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense then. Okay. So if they participate in anything else, whether it's those voluntary official missions or whatever, that's all fine and dandy. That's their choice to do so. It has no bearing on their status. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, reservist. So
Wait a minute.
reservist. Oh, sorry. Some comments.
I just wanted to change the training to 1 because I have suggested to the platoon commanders, and as far as I know, they are both rolling with the new platoon level training instead of section level training, because we've tried that for many months now, and very few people show up even when we actually enforce it. And it doesn't make sense to punish people that I know for a fact are otherwise really active and show up for the ops. So, in adherence to the platoon level ops that I think should happen bi-weekly, so that the platoon commanders and their warrants have time to plan for, what in our platoon is lacking. So what do we train specifically? They get 2 whole operations to figure that out. Then their training happens. So that means there are only 2 trainings. If they are in fact going with this way, then there's only 2 official trainings anyway, and requiring people to show up to those, even if it's like on an early Wednesday, if they're at work, is I feel that's not really fair. So
It's not just platoon trainings. It's also DP2s, DP3s, fucking lab qualification trainings, all that other shit that happens throughout the week as well.
Well, what if they already have those qualifications?
Yeah, they're not gonna go do it again.
They'll be showing up as instructors, as is written in the thing, or they'll be showing up as supporters to the courses.
But you can't expect a corporal to show up for a course he already has, and especially when he's not allowed to do so in an instructor capacity.
Okay, that's a valid point. Unless anyone has a huge deal with it, I don't mind changing it to 1. That actually makes sense now that I look at it that way.
Yep, I got no arguments.
Everybody okay with that?
That's fine with me.
Okay, done. Okay, moving on to reservist. Reservists must participate in at least 1 official Sunday operation per month. They will not, once you go reservist, your rank is taken away. If you take part in an op, they have no choice of what position they fill. That is up to us to tell them where we need them. If we need a leader, and the individual, we know from history and whatnot, has the ability to lead, then by all means, we'll give him a temporary rank for that particular operation in order to fulfill that job during the op. If a reservist does not meet the expectations of 1 official Sunday operation per month, then the release process, as we have been doing, will be started on that individual. Comments?
Can I also add a caveat that they're not allowed to attend any trainings we give them? Because it's a waste of everybody's time to train a reservist on something if he's a reservist.
Well, not really, because
you,
you still have the
step out.
experience for the 1 op that he's there.
So I'm not going to give trainings to people who aren't going to you come into the fucking platoons and regiments and use the training I give them. It's a waste of my time. It's up to you guys, of course.
Well, I would rather them be able to go to the trainings, because if they're only coming to 1 operation, I would rather somebody know what they're doing than just be dragged along.
They're not eligible to go for reserve status prior to them getting guardsmen anyways, so they'll know what they're doing anyways, and they'll be slotted in usually as a rifleman.
How many guardsmen have you seen that actually don't know what they're doing still, though?
Not many. I'll give you that, very few.
Well, if I can just say what we can do here is kind of the same thing I've been doing as an instructor. For my leadership training, as you know, I invite pretty well everybody from the rank of corporal and above. However, I keep the right to refuse anyone because my class is too big. So you know what I'm saying? So the priority goes to, so in this case, if you have a training session, and let's say it's, I don't know, we'll just say section battle drills. So you need, if you don't include yourself as a leader, you need 8 guys. So if you have 9 guys, and one of those guys is a reservist, then you can politely say fuck off.
Yeah, okay. And additionally, can we make another point that if you're not eligible for reserve status until you reach the rank of guardsman?
Okay, we can put that in. Is
no
everyone
fucking-
okay with that?
No point in brand new
That's
privates going
already
reserve.
that's already a ratified regulation, Bale.
Yeah, I know, but
And
we'll
it should
put it in this
be-
master document, right?
Yep, that's fine. It's okay. It's not going to hurt anything.
I have a question about what it means when you say you take their rank away.
So if you're a warrant officer and you go reserve, then you have no rank. It's not a punishment. It's just saying that when you come to an operation, if we don't need any leaders, we don't need any officers, we need a rifleman, then I'm not going to put a warrant officer in one section as a rifleman.
That makes sense, but then I would say because guardsman and corporal, those ranks are, I mean, the guardsman is basically you are qualified for DP1. Here you go. Corporal is a bit more nuanced, but still, it's essentially if you have the qualifications, then you're a corporal. So I feel that, either guardsman or corporal, depending on what qualifications they have.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't have a problem with that. So what we'll say is when you become reserve, your rank is dropped to whatever, guardsman or corporal. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, that's fine. That way it'll also prevent them from coming on once a month and then trying to flex their warranty muscles despite the fact that they've only been showing up 4 times a year.
Okay, so I'm going to put in there will be reduced to the rank of, we'll just say corporal. That'll hopefully keep people happy.
Now what happens if they come out of reserves though?
Well, then they go back. Now, that's a very good question. Okay, let's talk about that. So, let's say, use an example. Let's say, let's say you, Baleshta, you go reserve for whatever reason. Boom, you're a corporal. You come back. Your position has been taken by somebody else. So what do we do? That's a very good question. Here's my gut feeling on it, and once again, it's open for discussion. If your position is available, then you'll be put back in that position if everybody agrees and nothing's changed to affect it. If your position has been taken by someone of a lesser rank, so let's say you're a warrant and the guy in your position is sergeant, then once again you will be entitled to go into your original position, and that individual just do shit rolls downhill kind of thing. He'll go back into his, etc., etc., etc. That's one way of doing it. Any feelings?
This should be not a black and white thing. This should be it depends on the person. Because in the case of Bale, what you just said makes perfect sense. But in the case of some other people in here, even if it's just a section commander role we're talking about, I'm going to have quite a bit of a problem with that.
I think some sort of, depending on how long their reserve status has been, when they come back, if they want to go back to what their previous rank was, if it was higher than corporal, they have to do some sort of recertification test to make sure that they still know what they're supposed to know.
That is putting some more work for you guys, of course, and myself.
Well, perhaps really what the answer is that it will be taken on a situation by situation basis then.
Yeah, pending approval of the CSM.
For example, Guthrie. Guthrie's been on reserve for as long as I've been in the unit. If he were to come back in and say, I'd like to try for a section commander, it's like, well, you need to prove that you know what you're talking about, know what you're supposed to be doing as a section commander, because as a reserve, he's not really here for those trainings and for the qualifications, right?
DePietro, please use a better example, because
Fellows.
That is... Who is Fellows again? Isn't he just a corporal?
He is just a corporal, but he was a 2IC. So if he were to come back from... if he was supposed to come back from reserve status, then he would have to do some sort of requalification test that's not necessarily... Yeah.
Right.
Those are a better choice of words.
Yeah, and once again, I think the underlying factor is here is to take it by a case-by-case basis, which brings up another point that I did not include in this reservist status, which might answer some of these issues. What is the maximum length of time a person can be a reservist? Because you can't be a reservist forever, can you? I don't know.
I mean, why not? I mean, they're as long as we keep the administrative shit that we have to deal with in order to keep them around, then I don't mind if people are reservists until the end of time. As long as they don't fucking rock the boat when they're in the reservist bucket, then they could stick around for all I care.
And as long as they stick to their guidelines, which is one official mission, and they have to stay, even though they're only allowed one mission a month, they could come in more than that, but I'm saying if they do one a month and they come in and every 2 weeks onto the website and just keep their attendance there as well, then that's all the requirement that's needed. They can stay indefinitely in that position as far as I'm concerned, but they'll never ever get a leadership role.
Okay, well that requirement for keeping up and indicating their attendance we're going to talk about in a little while. So okay, that's fine then. That makes total sense to me. So as long as they're meeting that expectation, then everybody's happy. And as far as what they do when they come back, that will be on a situational basis, based on the requirements, and the need of the unit as a whole. Make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I actually
LOA.
have.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
I actually have a question that I should have asked before we started this, and that is, does these new rules apply to the entire unit or just Acoy?
I'm going to be presenting it to the entire unit. My goal is to make it applicable to every single individual in 7C and BG. And to be quite honest with you, it's not much different than what we apparently have had before. I just want to make it official. And once it is official and the stamp of approval has been given by Morency and Hunter, then this document will be part of the recruiting process, and it'll be issued to every single current serving member, and each member will be required to read it and to sign it. Once you sign it, then you've said, even if you didn't bother reading it, you've said, I agree to everything in here, and therefore, when the situation arises where we need to act, they have no fallback whatsoever.
That makes sense. However, if you want to enforce this unit-wide, I feel that that's very unrealistic, because I'm going to put the Blackwells on the stand here. I've tried to get them removed from the unit a multitude of times, and I've always been kicked in the teeth at the highest level by Morency himself, because they give money and they've been here forever. So, and I'm pretty sure that they don't even qualify for reservist status at this point.
Okay, then one thing that we might be able to do, I'm just trying to think here. I don't want to do this, but the fact of the matter is there are certain circumstances, i.e. those two guys that constantly give money to the unit. And once again, that's their choice. No one's forcing them to do that. I understand that. But there may be some exemption here. I have to think about that a bit more. But right for today, let's just worry about this applying to a company, and then we'll worry about the unit as a whole later.
Well, I enjoy rules, and what you presented seems more than fair. But it just, again, we keep trying to fucking standardize all this shit haul, and then the Blackwells keep existing, and it just makes me fucking laugh at the whole thing. And I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at the situation, and like Morency's marshmallowness and all the other stuff.
Master Warren, if I may interject, we're going to focus on our house today. We're going to worry about the rest of the unit later, but today is our house, so let's keep this. Let's keep that focused.
Well, that's why I asked to begin with.
Yep, no, that's fine. Today, let's just worry about a company, and if we all agree, we'll adopt this for a company, and then we'll present it to the rest of the unit, and then get their input as well, as far as the unit goes, and then go from there. But right now, let's just focus on a company, if that's okay. But I appreciate your concern and your question. I'm not LOA. Okay, so let's go through this. So if you are on LOA, you are not allowed to participate in any official or non-official training or ops. And let me explain why I put that in there, and you probably already know. But that is to prevent these people who seem to think they can just show up on TeamSpeak and play and blah 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 and have fun and blah 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 and stay and never participate effectively. So you can't just show up because you've got time to be there if you're on LOA. If you're on LOA, you're basically saying, I am not part of the unit for my time on LOA, and I am not expected to participate in anything official or non-official while I am gone. Does that make sense?
What you said makes sense, but I still don't understand why we have to word it this way. Could you elaborate?
Okay, I'm trying to think of a good example. So let's say you have a guy, and he's on LOA. He can't participate in any. Apparently, he can't participate in any operational training, but he has no problem showing up an hour before the op and playing, and an hour after the op and playing. And a good example of that actually is that what's his name, Chevet. I can't remember his name. I always saw him playing on playing games on Steam, for example, because it pops up on my computer, and it was always before or after the op, which made me go, well, I don't get it. I mean for 3 hours between then and now you're busy? So it's the same thing on here. I see guys that come on here in the non-official hours, and they seem to have the time then to play and train and be with their guys, but they don't seem to have the time to be on an operation. That was the reason for that.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. I've actually seen that a bit myself with some people, but
That's talking
Okay.
LOA.
LOA,
so,
yeah.
question. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm sick right now, and I've been sick since this morning, so I'm not gonna be at the op here. Do I, like, beyond marking as myself as not attending because I'm sick? Is there anything else I need to do? Do I need to file an LOA for the next 3 days, or
No.
can I?
No. We'll get to that in a second about what the minimums are. I didn't put it in here, and I meant to, so we'll talk about that in a second. So, any official, unofficial. So basically you're saying to us, I'm off the face of the planet for the next 10 days. Okay, no problem. We don't expect to see you, and nor do we want you, because, even that you could almost say, well, we don't expect him to be here. Oh, Christ, now he's here. So we don't have a spot for you or whatever. So it just seems to me that we can alleviate any of that issue by simply saying, right, you're an LOA, Hall, go away, and we don't expect to see you until you come back in 10 days. Is everyone okay with that, or?
I mean, it makes sense. If you're on LOA, it means you can't play with us because you've got shit to do. It doesn't mean that you don't want to play with us, but you're going to still fucking come on here and play Dungeons and Dragons with your goddamn friends.
Exactly.
I agree completely.
Okay, so grant LOA will be no longer than 30 days in its length. I'll just go through this quickly and you guys can speak up. On the last day of LOA, a member must report to his immediate superior. You'll see later on I say as long as they report within 2 days, which I think is good. So as long as they report to their immediate superior within 2 days of their return, and then they can confirm their return to active or reserve status.
That'd be a good
If
time
their
to bring
LOA
up
is less than 30 days,
now would be
they
a
can
good time to
granted
bring
an
up
additional
Cunningham.
LOA, but only to a 30-day
Cunningham is
total, as you can see
Prolasis.
in my example.
He's the one
So
that
if
said
they're
he,
gone for 10 days, they
he's
come
been
back and go,
gone
hey, I
for
need
30
another 10
days.
days, or I need
He's
another
got a
5 days,
baby.
or I
He's
need
probably
another
going to be
20
gone for a
days.
couple more days.
No, I don't think that's what it
LOAs
was.
may be requested and granted through chain of command. So,
Well,
for
it's in the
example,
email
if a
too.
section
Find
member
out.
wants LOA, he can be granted that by his section commander. If the section commander isn't around for whatever reason, then he can go to the platoon warrant / commander, and if for some strange reason he can't get a hold of them, then he can be go to the Acoy headquarters, specifically
No, he's the one who
Company
wanted
Sergeant
to go
Major
on reserve.
for that. So he has many opportunities and different people he can
That's right. Yeah,
communicate
he was the
with
one who was on
to get that
reserves.
LOA.
Okay.
I said,
There is no
don't forget,
LOAs longer than
reserves
30
still
or
have the
extended
requirements
past 30
they need
days
to meet.
unless the company headquarters grants it. And this will be the exception, not the rule. So we're not going to have guys that keep going on LOA after LOA after LOA. It makes no sense for them. It's no good for us, and it just isn't going to happen. So if that's the case, then we'll simply release the individual, honorably, I guess, if you want to use that word. And they're certainly invited to come back when they're able to participate more, if they so wish. If a member does okay, I already talked about today's thing, blah, blah, blah. Then the release, if they don't report, then the release process, as we've been doing, will begin on that member. Comments?
Why 30 days?
It just doesn't make any sense. If you can't be there for a month, fine. But 2 months, 3 months, well, why don't you just go away and then you can come back. You can come back when you're, otherwise you got to keep track of this stuff all the time.
Okay. Two things. One, when is an LOA for 30 days grantable? Corporal, guardsman, master corporal, at what point? Immediately, as soon as they join the unit? Also, who's keeping track of these days? And lastly, after 30 days, do we put them on retirement? Do we actually kick them out of the unit? Or do we transfer them to some sort of reserve status?
Okay, so I added a line in here. LOAs are able to be requested once the rank of guardsman is reached. Is that good?
Yep.
I'd say up to 30 days though would be corporal. If you're a guardsman and you're going on LOA for 30 days, you're going to be missing a lot of important shit.
I know, but you got to remember the reason for an LOA is because of real life. So no matter what your rank, it doesn't change.
Yeah.
If you're working and you got to go work out in the bush for 30 days, it doesn't matter what your rank is. You know what I mean?
That's true.
I think that we should say time in the service greater than 30 days plus the rank of guardsman. You already have the rank of guardsman if you're here for 30 days, because if you don't, then we kick you out for that. But I think we should specify that, because I've seen guys, especially guys that I have taken a liking to, and who has soaked up information like a sponge, essentially attaining the rank of guardsman in all of 3 days. And I don't feel that they should be given the privileges that you're quoting here, normal guardsmen have.
Well, I've always thought the guardsman was supposed to be only given after a 30-day probationary period. That's when it's supposed to get. That's when you're supposed to be eligible for guardsman. Not just getting the quals, but also being here for 30 days. Now, I've been told that recently that that's not right, but maybe we should look at maybe adding that back in.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
I have.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
The guardsman thing, I don't mind that being given based solely on qualifications, because otherwise, we have to look at what it means in the real CAF and add some extra crazy shenanigans to the rank, when the crazy shenanigans already starts when we start promoting people to corporal, because then that denotes some kind of unit seniority, elevated qualifications, all that good stuff. So that's why I want to say 30 days plus guardsman instead of just guardsman. I don't know how old the information you're sitting with, Bale, but we have been promoting people pretty much the same week they get the DP1 qualification.
Yeah, which
to
is something
guardsmen.
I've disagreed with.
Yeah, if they get their DP1 Charlie and attend the
Alright.
following Sunday operation.
I'm gonna speak to that effect real quick, guys, and that is, they go through their training, and at the end of that training, they're given a test, an actual test. They got to go through and fill out to test their knowledge. They're given that guardsman rank at that point, is it guardsman or corporal? Guardsman. Yeah. So at that point, we've tested them, and if they know that test, if they pass it, if they retain that information, then what we've done is we have proved that they have retained the information, and we're moving forward with that. We're no longer going on time-based stuff just because people are quicker on the pickup than others. Time is something we don't have the luxury of at this point. If we had 300 people in here and we could sit on it for 30 days and wait for somebody to be trained in 30 days, let's be honest. We have guys coming in here, and 2 days later, they're ready to rock and roll because they've been in units before. So that's not something that I want to go back to. It's counterproductive, and that's
Okay.
just my opinion.
Okay, let me just interject for a moment because we're kind of actually getting off what we're talking about. So, the question that's has arose is, at what point can someone request leave of absence? So what I have in here, leave after requested once the rank of guardsman is reached. But as what was just said, what if he gets his qualifications in 3 days after joining and is promoted to guardsman? Well, what we can do there then is we can say LOAs are able to request it once a guardsman of rank is reached and the member has served in the unit for a minimum of 30 days or something like that.
I agree on 30 days.
Because, yeah, if someone joins and then 3 days later goes, oh, I want an LOA, well, why didn't you just wait to join?
I've actually seen that.
So what do you guys think about that? So once the rank of guardsman is reached, and if that's 2 days after they join, that's fine. He's got the qualifications, as Junkie was just saying. But the service time of 30 days minimum. Otherwise, so then the question arises, okay, well, what if he's here 5 days or 10 days and needs an LOA? See, there you go. See, that puts a wrench into it.
Well, the 30 days, I feel, is there to make sure that they know the ongoings of the unit. They have a good understanding of how we work. Not just the in-game qualifications that has to do with the DP1, but also they know the people. They're actually going to be interested in coming back, because if someone's only been here for 3 to 5 days, unless they've been on here for 24 hours times 5.
What makes Thermacare
They
different?
don't really
2
know
words,
people,
it
and
heals.
they
How?
haven't
With
really
heat. Unlike
created
creams
those
and
connections yet. So I'm just afraid that if we leave it at 5 or even 10 days, and they go on a 30-day LOA, they might not come back.
Well, but the other side of that coin, though, Chris, and I understand exactly what you're saying. The other side is, let's say you have a guy who gets his guardsman, whatever, in 5 days or whatever, and then 10 days later needs an LOA. But what if that guy, we've identified, that, hey, this guy's going to be awesome, and it's just a circumstance that it popped up for him. He didn't even know it. All of a sudden, he's got to go away or something that he didn't plan on. What about that situation?
Well, then I want to invoke staff discretion. We already do it in some cases.
Yeah, like
Yep.
the case of my brother, he has to go on LOA every now and then because of having to work out of town for a couple weeks or something. He had to do that pretty well as soon as he joined the unit.
Okay, so what we can do then is we can put in a caveat in here. We can say LOAs are granted in any and all circumstances. Hold on, let me get that right. LOAs are granted in any and all circumstances at the discretion of the leadership or something like that. Over and above the requirements listed here. So that way you have a guy that's exceptional, circumstance. Now, what we need to be careful of, though, is if we do something like that, not just with LOAs, but for anything, is we got to be very careful that the situation is transparent, right? Like the last thing we need is someone going, whoa, wait a minute. When I said I wanted LOA and I was told no. So we need to have some sort of way of justifying our decision.
Well, we already used the forums for it, so why not just use it again? I mean, Bale came into my office the other day and told me that I approved the guy too fast, and after a heated discussion on about 10 minutes, I could see the error of my ways and the fact that I need to trust the leadership, below me. But on the same token, he could see who approved it, so Bale knew who to complain to. And I feel that as long as we keep doing that, then that makes it so that even fairly high-ranked people like myself are still held accountable by everyone.
Right. Right, exactly. Okay, so look, blah, 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 LOAs. So what we'll do is put a base one in here. LOAs are not able to be requested, are able to be requested once the rank of guardsman and has served for a minimum of 30 days. So that is the norm. There's always exceptions, and we'll just go along with that situation in there if we have a guy. But it'll be the exception as to the rule, right? Like it'd be someone that we know right away. Man, this guy's awesome. You know, he's obviously dedicated. He just in the short time he's been here, he's been at everything. Blah 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 blah. And it's unfortunate that something's come up in his life that needs him to go away for a while. So we'll just leave it at that. Is that okay with everyone?
Docs. I just haven't changed it. The stuff he's changing now, I haven't changed yet. So that's the
I
thing.
haven't either. I didn't.
Yeah, no. So
Now,
that's
one
the thing
of the
that I
questions
want.
Junkie asked about this was who's going to enforce this, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Is there anything else about LOAs in here that we need to change or add?
Well, you said you were going to elaborate on my specific case with me being sick and probably being combat ineffective for 3 days.
Okay. So let's look at the when should a person request / be granted an LOA? What is the minimum time? Like, for example, if Chris is deathly ill and we know he's going to be gone for 5 days, should and ignoring rank and position right now, he's just a member. If he knows he's going to be gone for 5 days, should he have to put in an LOA, or should we do it where if the time away includes a Sunday operation, then an LOA should be put in, or do we not? And just simply the fact that he would indicate his status on that op that he won't be there, is that enough? So what's the minimum time that a person should request an LOA?
Well, if I could speak to that, is I think that we got to look at our minimums. Our minimums are 1 mission or 2 missions a month, right? So if we're only requiring 2 missions a month and 1 training, then that means they have to at least be somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 weeks. So anything longer than 2 weeks is basically what we're telling them they're okay with before having to request an LOA.
Yes, as long as they meet the other expectations, which we're going to talk about in a little while, about indicating their status on the actual calendar. So that makes sense, because a 2-week time frame includes training and includes their official ops that they're required to go to on there as an active member. So that makes total sense. It's a waste of time and paperwork to go anything less than that. Any opinions on that?
I agree.
I mean, it's kind of shitty to go 2 weeks without hearing from a member, but I mean that's our current requirements as far as the minimums required to be considered a full-time member.
Right, but that'll be dealt with in a moment here when we get to general requirements.
Yeah, roger that.
Okay, anything else on LOA before we move on?
Well, I just wanted to add real fast to what Junkie said about people not showing up for 14 days. And I'm pretty sure that that's against the rules anyway, because you have to check the website every 3 days. So, I mean, if you can just check the website and make sure to mark attendance on the stuff that relates to yourself, then that, coupled with you getting on here and verbally telling someone, preferably your own COC, that you're not going to be here because X and Y reasons, then, that should substitute an LOA for, those 14 days. But
exactly.
Just, stop. Let's say I didn't show up for, 2 weeks in a row. That would be all kinds of unacceptable, and regardless of my rank.
Right. So once again, that's a situational basis that we'll have to keep an eye on. And sometimes that's just a matter of pulling the guy aside and go, hey man, listen, I noticed, you didn't put an LOA and you didn't need to, but for the last 2 weeks, no one's seen the hide or hair of you. So, answer this message. So we can do it like this. Answer the message, to find out what's going on. If they don't answer it, then they'll be put on a forced LOA, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that could be an option there.
Well, I've kind of done some similar stuff with one platoon. I've done the little roll call message where I give them a full week to act the message, and anybody that doesn't act it, they get put onto reserves, and then 3 weeks they have to get in contact with chain of command before they're released. And if they don't get in contact, then they're marked soon to be deleted. All their tags and section tag stuff is removed, and then 3 weeks later they're discharged. So that's like a full month that they have to get in contact with somebody if they've been AWOL. And it's somewhat worked.
Yes. Yeah, and that's your platoon policy, and I don't have a problem with that as long as the platoon policies don't override the company policies, if that makes sense. So that's good. Okay, so common requirements then. So these, what we just went through is sort of your minimum basic status requirements, but what else are we expecting from people? So I may not have them all here. I'll leave it up to you guys to add, but I'll just go over what I've put. Over and above the status requirements, each and every member, no matter their rank, position, or how long they have served, are expected to adhere to the requirements listed below. And I put a note. Those persons well on LOA are exempt because, as we said, when they're on LOA, then they're gone. So what is required from all of us? We must indicate our attendance, attending, not attending, or maybe on all operations and relevant training sessions. Relevant meaning if it's leadership training, then you need to say we're going to be there. If it's one platoon and you're in one platoon, then that's relevant to you, for example. Posted in the unit calendar. Failure, and we got to treat this harshly, I believe, and we have to be serious about it. Failure to do so on a consistent basis. So, of course, the first question will be, well, what's considered consistent? We'll talk about that in a second. Will result in a forced LOA of no less than 7 days at the discretion of the company headquarters. Forced LOAs will be requested by the member's immediate superior through the chain of command. So if Private Bloggins comes to Sergeant Smith, if Sergeant Smith notices as he's doing his job of keeping track of people, he notices that Private Bloggins has not been indicating his intention on the calendar, and at his discretion, maybe he feels he hasn't been doing it, once and get away with it, but then twice, nope, 3 times, definitely not. You're on forced LOA, no questions asked, and you request that through the company headquarters. In this case, the company sergeant major will be responsible for that. However, if he's not around, then certainly the 2IC or myself can act on it. But you're given a forced LOA of 7 days. Basically, we're saying, you know what, you can't be bothered to tell us if you're coming or going. Well, then we'll just pretend you're not even here for 7 days, and away you go. Questions, comments?
Yeah, what happens after 7 days if they haven't shown up again? Then they're marked to start the removal process?
If after that 7-day forced LOA, then they're immediately put back onto onto the status that they were before they went on LOA. So we'll just use the example active. Okay, so he's active again, and basically everything's cool. However, if that person once again, you notice, okay, he still isn't signing up, then we escalate the action that we're going to take against that person.
So essentially, the forced LOA is basically somewhat of a 7-day ban, sort of.
Exactly.
Okay.
I didn't want to use the word ban though because it has a negative connotation. In this case, the idea behind the LOA is to basically, rehabilitate, if you will, the person, let them know, that's just not acceptable. So here's what you're going to live with, and when you come back, if you continue to do that, then we're going to escalate the punishment accordingly.
If they're on a forced LOA, that means they can't participate in any kind of operations or training.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, and I think you can all agree that this calendar thing, it just baffles me why someone can't take the 3 seconds to hit a little button and go yes, no, maybe. Go ahead, Chris. You're gonna say something.
I was gonna say that 7 days for, I dare say, over 80% of people in here is a really long time. That might as well be 10 years for people.
But that's the point, though, is it not? If it's it's a punishment, right? I mean,
sure.
It's your choice
we want
not
to
to fill
punish
in the
people,
thing.
but we don't want to essentially show them the door and then, fucking leave it open, swinging in the wind, because then, depending on the personality type we're dealing with, then they're just gonna say, well, fuck these guys. If they don't want me around, I'm just gonna leave. and some fucking if people don't mark attendance, 3 times in a row, even when we tell them to, it's justified. But if we define consistent as 2 times in a row, and then we suddenly boop, you're on fucking 7-day forced LOA, that coupled with other circumstance might make people leave outright instantly.
Well, the 2 times consecutive, that's essentially 2 weeks of them not doing anything. So
Well,
right there,
no,
they're already
it's not for the
essentially showing themselves
operation.
the door.
What it says here, DP, it says operations and relevant training sessions. So that could be, in the same fucking week.
That's right. That's right. So, DiPietro, if you're having a platoon training session, and one of your guys doesn't tell you if he's not coming, is coming, maybe coming, I don't know about you, but as we've been talking about before, that pisses you off, right? Look, I'm doing the work to get the training going, and you can't even be bothered to tell me if you're going to be there or not. And that's the that's the gist of this thing.
Yeah. Well, for that, that's actually somewhat easy. Well, should be easy in theory to keep track of using the attendance trackers that myself and Foss made.
Exactly.
Every section commander has to use that to mark the operations and their trainings for who shows up, who doesn't, who's on LOA, etc. So we can actually keep track of that at section level.
And you also notice that I said it's at discretion of company headquarters. So what that means is, if section commander, if Baleshta notices that Private Smith isn't signing up, it's up to Baleshta to decide whether he needs to escalate that. So if he says, geez, Smith, fucking guy never signs up for anything, I've talked to him about it a couple times, he still isn't signing up, then at his discretion he can say to the company headquarters, I recommend that Private Smith be put on forced LOA. So it's still at the control of the section commander and the platoon commanders to decide to do that or not. So it still gives you the flexibility of being more forgiving of an individual that perhaps, has, although I don't know where this would work, but has some sort of reasonable reason in there. So you guys on your own would decide what is considered, bad, 3 days, 3 times, 2 times, 1 time, 10 times, whatever. I have no problem leaving that up to you because, as I've noted in the responsibilities, the company sergeant major, who is responsible for the overall unit status, he too, of course, has access to the information. So if you, as a section commander, allow this guy to keep doing it, the sergeant major can override you. He can say, no, hold on a minute. You keep letting this guy not indicating his thing, and he's done it now for 10 times. I'm not having that, and we're going to put him on forced LOA. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yeah. One other thing. What do we do about people that don't mark their attendance and then actually show up for the operation? Do we punish them and say, sorry, you can't participate because you can't take 3 seconds to mark attendance?
No. If they
or do we just reprimand them verbally?
Yeah. Just talk and say, hey, But see, you got to be careful with that, because if they indicate they're not going to be there, okay, great, they've done that. That's what we want them to do, and then they show up for it. I don't think that should be.
No. I mean, they haven't marked anything. They haven't marked attendance. They haven't marked not attending or a maybe, and then they show up to an operation. Do we reprimand them for that somehow?
No. By all means, say to them, hey man, you didn't, as we always do. Hey man, you didn't indicate your status. Please don't let that happen again. But if it does, then we have this thing here to use, right?
Yep.
So by leaving it up to you, your leadership guys, to decide when enough is enough, I think that's fair. And then overviewed, or I don't know what the proper word is, overviewed by the company sergeant major. Overall, I think that's enough.
Probably because it has a hard time.
Huh?
It's probably because it has a hard time.
Any other comments on that? Does that work for everybody? It doesn't. I just said 7 days because it's a week, so it covers, op, it covers training, etc. that they're not allowed to attend. It can be less than that. It can be more than that. I'm certainly open to suggestions. Okay, well, we'll leave it at that then. Once again, all of this stuff, right? We luckily we have the power. If 2 months from now it's dog's breakfast not working, then we can change it. But we'll just keep it at that for now. The other thing that we're all required to do, of course, is to log into the 7CMVG website on at least a weekly basis. I log in about 10 times a day, but anyway, and respond to any and all messages. Now, I know that this is a pet peeve of many of you guys, and DiPietro's brought this up. You know, you send out messages, and people just seem to ignore it. Like, and I think it was you that said, is there something wrong with the engine? Or these things not
That was my brother.
going out? Yeah. So you know, people are responsible for doing that, and they need to log in. And of course, you can tell if they've logged in, because when you go to the Orbat, it says right there, last seen on such and such and such a time. So you can go on there and you can see, geez, this guy hasn't been on here since November the 5th. You know, what's the deal with that? So, and that of course all ties in with inactivity, etc., etc. So everyone's responsible for doing that. For obvious reasons. Of course, we're also responsible for keeping our game up to date with ArmaSync, and I find it very frustrating myself when we come to an operation and we're just about to go, and then someone says, "Oh shit, my thing's not working," and then someone replies with, "Well, did you update?" "Oh no." "Oh man." Well, guess what? We're not waiting for you anymore.
Especially since the updates go out a week prior.
Exactly. And if you can't be bothered to keep your game up to date, once again, it takes 3 seconds to click the little button on here, then you obviously don't take much importance into what we're doing. So if that's the case, then my recommendation is we basically say, listen guy, we're not waiting for you, so I think you'll be not included in this session, and we'll see you next one. It's very rare, right? But you do have it from time to time, and I find that a lot of times it's for whatever reason it tends to be the same guy.
I always tell, I've been telling people in one platoon, show up at 5 p.m. The op starts at 7, show up at 5. If you have issues with your mods, we can sort it out. 6 p.m. is when the briefing starts. 7 p.m. we step off. And for the most part, it works. Occasionally, there's a few people that they have something go wrong because maybe they were messing with some other mods on their own time or something, and it screwed up their game, but generally that works out pretty well.
Any comments from anyone on common requirements? Is there something we need to put in there?
Not that I can think of.
You got
It's
anything?
all pretty simple, stupid stuff.
Yeah.
It's following proper chain of command.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, it's funny you should say that. I was looking at that. You guys remember that document I put out as a Sergeant Major quite a while ago, talking about chain of command and also what happens on the battlefield in chain of command. I'm going to reissue that to the guys as well, but chain of command, yes, I'll put that in. I'll make a paragraph of that one as well. Okay, good. Anything else? So, oh, sorry.
Give me a sec, I have a document I just need to pull up here. Something for platoon that me and Foss were working on.
This meeting is going a little bit longer than what I want it to. Is everyone okay with sticking around for a bit more?
Yeah,
that's
I'm
fine.
fine with it. So that one's the 2 platoon one, because I'm too lazy to go with the 1 platoon. The only difference for 1 platoons is that I changed my LOA thing, which actually seems like Foss has changed his as well. But that's what me and Foss had both agreed on as far as general section member, 2IC and IC responsibilities when they're in the platoons. So with what we've been talking about, this will have to be amended, especially for the attendance and signing up stuff, but for the responsibilities for them, it's pretty cut and dry.
Okay, just make sure you guys go over it and that it aligns with what we're talking about here today, because we can't have 2 different standards, right?
Yep, I'll be bringing it up with them.
Okay, good. So responsibilities. I just sort of put this stuff in here. I've probably missed something or forgot to add something, but let's go through quickly. At the section level, support element level, for those guys over in support company. So what's the section commander responsible for? He's responsible for maintaining a roster of his section, indicating the status of each member. I believe we do that now. He's responsible, has permission. So the section commander has permission to grant LOAs to their section members without having to elevate that any further. He's responsible for changing status and indicating status changes on his roster, and he's responsible for recommending disciplinary action to company headquarters when required. Of course, that's in reference to the forced LOA. Platoon leaders, basically the same thing, but just at a different level. So they're responsible for maintaining a roster indicating the status of their section commanders and det commanders, granting LOAs to their section commanders, their status changes, and once again, recommending disciplinary actions to headquarters when required. In the company headquarters, the company 2IC, he's responsible basically for the platoon commanders. Same thing. So he maintains a roster of them, their status, etc., granting them LOAs, as well as other headquarter personnel. So if CSM wants an LOA, then company 2IC is the guy that would grant that to him. Or if we have a company clerk or whatever else we have in the company headquarters, that's the 2IC's bailiwick. And of course, recommending disciplinary action overall to the company OC when required. The CSM, who's an important man here, maintaining a Acoy roster based on the information from the commander. So the overall roster and updating is the company sergeant major's responsibility, and in real life is exactly the same way. When I was the company sergeant major and the regimental sergeant major, every day I had to do a parade state, which is basically a document indicating where everybody is in the zoo for the entire unit, and I'd have to forward that to my upper chain of command. So that's a CSM thing, so responsible for the overall roster of the unit. Granting leave of absences to any non-commissioned member if they haven't already been granted by the platoon commander, can grant it to their section commanders as well. But if they're not around, then certainly the CSM can do that. And he's responsible for acting on disciplinary recommendations for the NCOs. So if D. Petro says Baleshta has not fulfilled my requirements for indicating his status on the calendar, I'm recommending him for a forced LOA, Sergeant Major, and then Sergeant Major makes that happen if he so agrees. So that's the idea behind that. Any questions?
What does maintaining a complete core roster based on the info from the section commanders actually entail?
Well, not a whole lot, only because the ORBAT on, well, I don't know if it's going to, hopefully it'll be the same way on our new website, but the ORBAT that the platoon commanders are responsible for keeping up to date on the website. You can just look at that yourself and just see who's here, there, and everywhere. And the reason for that, for you to do that, from time to time, is so that you can in fact override. Once again, the example of the forced LOA. If you see a guy that hasn't been on the website since November the 3rd, you're responsible for starting to ask questions as to why this guy is still active, etc., etc. So just an overall, Sergeant Major, just an overall responsibility to cover everyone's ass and make sure that what we requires is being done.
Okay, I was already
Shouldn't
doing
involve
that.
a whole lot
It
of
was,
paperwork. Yeah, it shouldn't involve a whole lot of paperwork or anything. Just an overall supervision of the status of people.
Okay, because I just foresaw me sitting down, using 1 to 2 hours at the end of each month, just writing up a big document about this is all the people we have.
No need for that.
All right.
So, looking at those responsibilities based on, the status, requirements, etc. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Eat time.
Sounds good to me.
What?
Eat time.
It's
I
time
have
to
no
eat.
questions.
But you gotta be back on 6.
Now, as with everything I do, if something comes up that you didn't think about now, later on, by all means, get a hold of me and we can look at it. So I've made the edits to this document. There's a couple other very small little housekeeping things I'm going to do to it. I will send you guys the final document so you can go over it one more time just to make sure I didn't forget to do something or your mind changes on something. And then once I have got you guys as my first acknowledgers of these requirements, I will then authorize it to be distributed to your guys. Okay?
Roger.
Sounds good.
It's good on my side.
And does this also, for those of you who recruit, does this also, not necessarily the responsibility part of it, but the requirements, is this something that you agree should be given to a new guy? as part of his recruiting process?
User joined your channel.
I think portions of this is something that both is and should be part of the recruiting requirements. Especially when it comes to somebody's, first step in here. I mean, this kind of could give them a really good, acclimation to what this unit is all about.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's pretty cut and dry. There's not a lot of there's not a whole lot of vagueness in it. Here it is. Here's what we expect. Can you do it? Great. Welcome. But if you can't, then this is what's going to happen. And that's basically what it says to new guys and to current serving guys. So let's drop it there unless anyone has another comment, and we'll move on.
I can't seem to find the place where it says Acoy OC and his responsibilities.
I'm the big guy. I have the big hammer, and of course I can veto anything. But I'm not going to do that, as I think I've indicated, or I've shown that I trust all of you guys to do what's required. So, Sergeant Major, if you give someone a forced LOA, unless I see something blatantly bad about it, I'm not going to question it in any way, shape, or form, and will support you. And that goes for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but I was just wondering more so I can point at this document later in case Junkie starts, dancing on my head, and I can be like, you're technically not supposed to do that. That's for Major Hall to do.
Well, yeah, I never really thought, okay, well, I'll try and put something in there for that. Like I said, I still got to add a few things. So when you see the final document, then by all means, give me your final comments on it, and then we'll make it for real.
Sure, it wasn't that big of a priority for me. It was just I thought it was funny that particular spot was missing.
Oh, okay.
He just wanted to make sure that I wasn't too...
Yeah, I think what he was really doing was sending a message to Junkie is what he's really doing.
I think that's what he was trying to do anyway, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk a little bit. We're not going to go any further. This is important, so we need to cover it. I don't want to make another meeting. Training. So let me just go over my views on this, and then I'll give you guys an opportunity. So training. Let's first of all talk about the training, whatever you want to call it, matrix, the QSWB, I think it's called, which, by the way, I still cannot edit. I got to try and figure that out. Anyways, that document was created by myself, Junkie, Scott when he was here, and Foss. I can't remember if there's anyone else in here who was part of that. I apologize if you were. That document was based on the DP1 part A, B, and C was based on, we said to ourselves, what do we need as soon as possible, a new person to join the unit? What do we need them to get as quickly as we can in order for them to participate fully as soon as possible in our training, or pardon me, in our operations? So that's where that decision was made. It's been revamped a little bit. For example, I added house clearing, Fibia. Here, let's bring up that document. It's here somewhere. Just a sec. Actually, no, it's not anymore. That's right. TeamSpeak's changed. Anyways, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So DP1, A, B, and C was the training that guy got. We started making up training lesson plans and everything for that. Some of them have been deleted with the crashing of TeamSpeak, unfortunately. Some of them have been saved by myself because I kept them in my folders. So we'll get that. Oh, thanks, DPitcher.
Yeah, the one that you had. If you can actually save a copy of it, even though you may not be able to edit, then you'll be able to edit the copy.
Okay, great, thank you.
So that one there, if you
so
look back, you're good.
So yes, if you look at this, you can see DP1A. We're not going to go through it, spend the time, but just so I think you understand. So DP1 was your welcome to the unit, guardsman qualification type stuff, and that was all to be taught with the subject in green, and then the main teaching points of each of these lessons on the right. The fighting in built-up areas, some of you call it CQB, some of you call it MOUT, whatever. Same thing. That I still have to fill in there, and I will. So those, and then when you see this 75%, 95%, blah, 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 that's all irrelevant now, because those things, for the most part, are all done. But that's just the group's way of keeping track of where we were in that. And it was going very good, and the wheels fell off of it for a number of reasons. Mainly we got busy, etc., etc. So we left it there. DP2, is requirements for corporal to master corporal, and as you can see, the requirement for corporal also includes 2 specialty courses, which I have down at the bottom, DP2C, and then DP3, of course, is your sergeant, warrant officer requirements in there. This list is by no means complete or even what's the word I want to use, or even accurate. It's just simply what we as a little group decided, and I sat down and looked at it from the real life experience and put in there what I think people need to know for those different rank structures. So, having said that, the going forward is we need people to start to volunteer to fill in the details of these lessons based on what you see on this document for now, and putting it in a common format that everyone can use, and we can form a battle library. That was the end result that we were looking for, and we still need that end result. So going forward, we're going to continue to work on this. I'll give a little more details about that, how we should go about it a little bit later. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but just to give you an overview. Leadership training, which seems to be a big issue right now, and understandably so. We have people in a company and in the unit in general who hold certain ranks, but with holding those ranks, they don't have the requirements as shown in this document. And one of our tasks is to get those individuals up to snuff with the proper requirements that you see here. So having said that, the problem with the leadership training, of course, is and this is by no means a blanket statement to anyone in here or anybody else, but part of the problem is that the original requirements, I guess, aren't necessarily held by those people who can instruct it. So, for example, Baleshta, we can't expect him to teach fighting patrols if he himself hasn't even been taught it. So with that in mind, it's one of the reasons why I've been trying to set up leadership sessions for me to teach these topics to you, and then I would expect you to go on from there and be available to teach these topics to our other leaders as we move forward. That's the overall plan and how it should work, so that takes this pressure off of me, and I can rely on other people to teach these things. But before that can happen, of course, the instructors and NCOs we have need to have this themselves. So that's where I came in to do that. So next Saturday, as you know, is DP 300, which is call for advanced call. In this case, just call for fire support. The other 2 things are also included, but they're going to be run by the air jet, as I mentioned before. So there's where we need to go. So as you know, my biggest pet peeve is we set these things up, not just me, but you guys as well. You set up these sessions, and everyone complains because they don't get it, but then those same people don't even show up. It makes it very, very frustrating and almost makes it a waste of time. But for me, my attitude is if one guy shows up, no matter what, then I'll teach it anyways, because it's not fair for that person to be told, oh, hey, I haven't enough people, so screw you. I don't want to do that, nor do I expect other people to do it. So that's my blurb on the training. We need standardized lesson plans. That document on how to write up a lesson already exists. I will get that out to you if you haven't already got it. And in the very near future, within the next month, I'll be running a three period day on planning, preparing, and giving a lesson. That's my blurb. Any comments?
I have a multitude of things in relation to the training I want to go over, but now is not the time, and I will schedule, hopefully, a meeting with you this weekend.
Okay, sounds good. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Do you agree? One thing, I guess, is really a basic question for all of you. Do you agree and want the organized training that this document proposes?
Well, I can tell you right now that Chris and I taught well over 200 members that are no longer here, each and every one of these points. And each and every one of those members knew, before they eventually left, of course, they knew each and every one of these points along this list. So I wholeheartedly go with some sort of organization, especially with this kind of layout that kind of allows You know, if I were to teach it, if DP were to teach it, even if it's fundamentally different, they still have those, each and every single one of those points is covered, so they know their roles. So I firmly believe in having at least a base or a foundation with this kind of organization.
Now, some of this stuff is gained through osmosis, right? What I mean by that is, for example, yesterday in my
He was just, like,
orders,
quiet for the
I sort of
longest time.
explained the
Like,
difference
I know.
between a blocking, delaying, and a defensive position. So in reality, I was teaching a little bit off some of this stuff. So there is that sort of what's the word I want to use? On the job learning that goes on. And for the most part, and when it comes to the leadership part of it, for some of it, we've sort of been relying on that. And I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to move to a more, when it comes to leadership, a more organized instructional fashion so that everyone gets the same message. And I think the important part is consistency in all of this, so that each soldier gets the same information and not and can't sit back and question it and go, wait a minute, Sergeant Bloggins told me we do it this way. Now I got Sergeant Smith getting mad at me because I'm doing it wrong and he wants me to do it this way. Although that, even in the real Army, that was never completely 100% avoidable, it's still, we should be conscious of that situation and try to minimize it where possible.
All right, wait, back that up. We're trying to minimize what? Different ways of teaching. We're not accepting.
Not necessarily different ways of teaching, but the inconsistency of the information. So, if Recruit Smith is told that you throw a grenade underhand, and Recruit Bloggins is told to throw it overhand, that's not good, because then we come into a situation where if Smith is under Beleshta's command and Beleshta knows that he wants the guys to throw underhand, this guy throws it overhand, he goes, hey, fuck, what are you doing? Who trained you anyway? That's not the way we do it. And that causes a problem. So that's kind of a lame example, but hopefully you understand what I mean. And the only way to do that, of course, is to ensure the documentation and resources are there for the instructor to use. And that was a reason behind making a common format for the lessons. Now, Junkie brought up a thing too, where there's other mediums we can use for this, i.e. videos, PowerPoint presentations, etc. I would leave that up to the instructor. What's important is the instructor has the same material as another instructor, and then what he does with that material in terms of presenting it to his students is completely up to him, as long as the material is the same. So if Junkie likes to use video and he wants to take the time to make a video of a certain subject, that's great, as long as that video contains the same information as another guy who's giving it through a PowerPoint presentation. Make sense?
Yep. The thing I would actually like to create is essentially a document in the same style as the QSWB, except it works like a library we already have, but the library is like all over the place, and some of it is not even fucking relevant. So I'm hoping to get them the motivation to, hopefully tomorrow, considering I'm not going to be fucking doing anything because I'm sick, get started on that and have essentially just a big list of all the relevant information and documentation that we have, and once I have created the first draft of that haul, I will send you a link to it on Engine, one you can actually edit, and then you can add in extra stuff if you want to, like the lesson planning stuff and whatever documentation you might have. Additionally, Morin C is the guy that owns the QSWB, so if you want access to it, talk to him.
Yeah, I will. I used to have access. It only changed when TeamSpeak changed. But anyways, that's here nor there. We'll deal with that later. Other than those topics today, guys, and my blurb on training, I really have nothing else. I open the floor now to all of you. We'll start from the top and go down. If you have anything else you'd like to have a quick talk about, let's not go too long, as we've already been at this for an hour and a half. So, Junkie.
No, I think we covered a lot of things. I'd just like to find out how we're going to employ this as soon as you're done with your write-up, I guess we'll make it available for everybody to, read, or are they going to have to do some sort of sign acknowledge, or what? What's the plan after we get this squared?
Yeah, the plan is once it's squared away, and I give it to you guys one more time, just to acknowledge and confirm that, yep, okay, you're good with that. You guys will sign it, and then it will be issued to every single member of the company, and then they will be required, and it'll be up to the section commanders to ramrod these guys. Say, listen, guys, read it and acknowledge it. So it will be in a message format, and all they have to do is read it and put an ACK in there. And once we see that everybody in the company, as it currently exists, has done that, then that'll make it official, and nobody has any excuses from that point forward. Anything else? DiPietro.
Nope, good on my end.
Chris.
I want to bring up something that is, I dare say, perhaps unrelated. I talked about it a bit earlier, and that was the thing that Baleshta told me when I approved a Walker's transfer to Air Debt, and that was to trust in the leadership below me. And while I'm definitely not accusing anyone in here of not trusting people, I feel that that is a concept, a leadership concept, that is not reinforced well enough. And I made the mistake of ignoring it, and I just don't want to see anyone else make the same mistake that I did. So if you have any pointers on how to go about doing that haul without outright accusing people of doing stupid stuff, I would appreciate that.
Well, I think that what it really comes down to is trusting the guys below you until you can't trust them anymore. So what do I mean by that? I mean that for DiPietro, for example, he's one of my platoon commanders. I have all the faith in him based on my knowledge. I wouldn't have put him in that position if I didn't. I have all the faith and knowledge in him to do and fulfill the requirements and obligations that he has in terms of the company and of the unit. And until he fails to do that, I will continue to trust him. The moment that something happens that says puts a red flag in my mind, he's fucked up or didn't do anything the way I wanted him to, blatantly, not ignorantly, but blatantly, then that puts a doubt into me. And from that point forward, there's a very good chance that I do a little bit more micromanaging. But until that occurs, I will be hands off all of you guys. I give you your direction. I've done my best to document certain stuff that I expect you to know and to carry on with, and that same advice is to all of you. So DiPietro, you need to trust your section commanders, and if a section commander you don't feel is trustworthy, then he shouldn't be your section commander. So don't take these decisions of putting people in positions lightly. There's a lot of responsibility. We all know that. That's why we're here. And the people in this room and other people who aren't here have shown just a tremendous dedication to the unit. So we need to have that trust of each other. But once that trust has been what's the word? Tarnished. That changes kind of everything. And I really believe that you should all live by that same thing. That's not to say that if a guy below you, fucks up royally, that you just completely, throw him out in the trash. Not at all. But what it does mean is it's an opportunity for you to sit with the individual, go over what the hell happened, what can be, how he or she can correct the issue, and then, and then start to build your trust in that individual again going forward. And that's really the attitude I've always taken. So maybe sometimes a lot of guys wonder, how come Hall never talks to us, or how come he doesn't come down here? Well, because I really just want to leave you alone to do your jobs. There's a lot of work involved and whatnot. So that's the reason why. Having said that, however, we all have a responsibility at our levels for overall supervision of what's going on. So as a company commander, I take note of things right down to the private. I look at that ORBAT to see when the last time certain people had been on here, and I make notes of that, whether in my mind or by pen. And so I am responsible for the overall thing. Captain Junkie is also basically at that same level. Master Officer Chris, his priority is the NCOs within the company overall, but that doesn't dismiss him from the overall responsibility. But his focus needs to be on the NCOs, making sure the section commanders, the two ICs, weapons debt command, all those guys, are on the ball and doing their thing, and then communicating through the platoon commanders if he has an issue. And that's one thing about the chain of command that sometimes is confusing for people. Okay, you're an officer, I'm an NCO. What is our relationship? Well, the company headquarters, for the most part, does not go directly to the section command, or pardon me, to the soldier within the unit. He has to go through someone. And in most cases, Sergeant Major, your direct point of contact within the platoons will be the platoon warrants when they're in position. For now, your direct contact for any concerns about the platoon is through the platoon commander until those platoon warrants come in. And then, of course, me as the officer, my direct comms is through the platoon commanders, and I would never, unless I see something blatantly bad, ever go directly to a section commander or a member of the platoon, and bypassing that communication COC. Hopefully that long diatribe explained it. When they're in position.
Yeah, you brought up some good points there, Hall, and I mean, the reason why I'm bringing it up is just because it really stuck with me when Bale pointed it out, and something that I had forgotten, and I felt like I should bring it up again to you guys in case, it wasn't blatantly obvious.
Well, everything to me, and you guys have heard me say this, I like to think that everything that we do, not just in this game, because all this stuff, all this building of a human as human beings, all this stuff is valuable outside this place too, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of stuff I learn, in terms of being more patient with people, all that kind of thing helps me in my real world, and not just in the virtual world. So I really encourage everyone, no matter who you are, what your rank is, where you are in your life or in this game, to try and look at it like that. That it's an opportunity to grow, despite even how small that growth might be, and to sometimes open your eyes. Oh, geez, like Chris, I think you said something the other day that kind of stuck with me, and I can't remember what exactly it was.